Good morning, welcome to a morning outlook on Monday the 5th of February. So looking at the euro dollar first, and Friday ended up as a bit of a down day. It closed within the range of the previous day. I wasn't too shocked at that. The non-farms coming out relatively positive for the US dollar. Now where we're sitting, we've still got this monthly pivot below us. We're just into the weekly pivot. I think it's kissed that weekly pivot a little bit. In fact, I'm going to come right the way down to the hourlies here. Still, so it shows the picture of really the higher lows that we're still seeing running through here, and the higher highs that are in there. However, in the short term, we've got a bit of a wedge going through here, and it's run into the daily pivot there already. Actually, it's just short of the weekly pivot, which looks like a reasonable probability at some point. Now, I've drawn this trend line on here already. There's one across the tops there. Perhaps a break either side of that will give us the sort of clue of any bigger move today. But short term, we may just see, as I say, the test of that weekly pivot. Just see how that fans out after, pans out even after 8 o'clock. So if it starts breaking through that one, well, then I'd be looking more likely towards Friday's lows in the S1. A bounce off that, then I'd sit there, wait for a little while and see if we can break the top side of that and look up towards Friday's highs. So pretty simple really there. Looking at the pound, not too dissimilar picture. We have got a trend line that runs right away from the lows here on the 30th, going across there as well. Seems to have broken down a little bit more in terms of it's broken some previous lows there, and looks a bit softer at the moment. It's got the daily pivot above, so maybe if it gets back above that weekly pivot, more likely I prefer it above the 60-21s and get above that sort of area. Then it gives us a plane potentially back for the daily pivot, but at the moment it's erring on the bearish side, although there has been divergence on this hourly picture. So there, as I say, a bit of divergence there. Just coming back to look at the bigger picture though here, just quite a bearish engulfing, almost engulfing. I think that double topped on Friday there, candle there, and the monthly pivot again is a sort of the bigger target that would be played for if we do see a more solid breakdown. It's we have got services PMI this morning. It's one of the biggest and most important numbers out for the pound. That should be out at 9:30. So watching for that for any signs of movement today. Okay, that's the pound. Let's look at the yen. So yen run back into its monthly pivot here, having a reaction to that, the 21. It's again, it's a bit like the pound. It's rolled over that little bit more in terms against the US dollar. We have got the weekly pivot just below us there at 109.68. If it does pop back to that sort of area with that 21, I would look at the potential bounce sort of situation. Now on the hourlies here, I've drawn a couple of trend lines. Just looking at this price action, a break up to the upside there. Well, through the 60-21, I'd be looking maybe back towards Friday's highs there. It's already, as I said, hit the daily pivot. Weekly pivot may come later. Likewise, though, any breakdown, and I'd start looking towards that weekly pivot. At the moment, though, with higher lows, higher highs, it looks more look like there's more upside potential there. Aussie dollar, another one that's broken down a little bit more, a bit like the pound. The yen, I just showed you, it's broken right the way through. It's a weekly pivot there, eventually on Friday, coming back and retesting it and breaking down towards the 34. Again, some softening going on here, and well, weekly pivot above. It needs to really, there is a trend line or two running across the, well, certainly a more key trend line that's running somewhere between that 4-hourly 8 and the weekly pivot. Now that may give a trade at some point to break that 8, but just got to watch that trend line. If it breaks through it, well, fine, the weekly pivot could be on. Just on the short term here, and daily pivots have been missed here. It's just below, and that could come with a trend. Actually, I'll drawing a trend line on here on the hourlies. It doesn't come with that, so it gives room. If it starts breaking through this short-term trend line of 60.21s, well, daily pivot becomes a bit of a target, then maybe weekly, depending on other pairings. But it does look, with the lower highs, lower lows, it does look weak at the moment, the Aussie dollar. And finally, the Canadian dollar. Solid up day there. So weakness of the Canadian dollar against the US dollar there on Friday. Again, it looks, well, it's broken quite a few trend lines that were sitting across there. It has the weekly pivot below, so again, we could see movement down towards that sort of zone. Just looking after, I've drawn a sort of trend line, a near-term trend line off the hourlies here. Maybe a break of that along with the 60.21s would see a more substantial move down towards that weekly and daily pivot, which are pretty much on top of one another there. Okay, one other bit of news really for the euro there at 4 p.m. Around about 4 p.m. fix, so this could be a bit volatile around 4 this afternoon. ECB President Draghi is due to testify at the annual report for 2016 before the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Whenever I say that he really won't say too much more that he hasn't already said, then something gets said. So be aware of 4 o'clock for sure. And as I've already said, for the pound, UK services at 9:30, and we've got US services at 3 p.m. So a couple of numbers out there which may create some volatility in these markets. Have a great one. Bye for now.